Hello and welcome to Out of Office. You're watching it right here on NDTV Profit. For this week's guest, being in the stock markets was not a natural preference. From being a systems programmer in the US to being a member of the BSE Stock Exchange, well, that's the long run from there. Let's find out more about Ramesh Damani. Ramesh, welcome to the show. Thanks a lot for giving us your time.
Divya, nice to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, this is what we know you love to do. You love to read. Almost 6 hours a day is what you've put into reading. You love reading all kinds of books, management-related books, and obviously stock markets, because that's what you are. Your heart and soul belongs to it.
Post 3:30, in between 3:30, I'm a man walking with two books. So in my business, in the business of equity investing, reading is fundamental. All right, the raw material of a business is reading, and it's not like we're reading to get a next great idea or the next stock pick, but just to become a bit smarter about how the world operates, a database of the world, you will. And there's no better than between the pages of a book to become that smart. My friends tell me that I'm a book with two legs, so yeah, I tend to read that much, but it's good. I've really enjoyed it, and I found that I can learn a lot of wisdom from reading Buffett, Paulson, or whoever, not necessarily the stock market, but philosophy, business, literature. They all have. The only category I don't read is fiction, because life is much better than fiction.
You know, like I just said in my introduction, being in the stock market is probably not a natural choice for you. How did that happen, from being a systems programmer in the US to coming down and realizing that you want to do this?
It's actually amazing. You know, Steve Jobs, who passed away recently, had this great speech which he gave at Stanford called Connecting the Dots, that how you do something in your life and you don't understand at that point, but somehow it helps connect the dots later on in your life, and then it all becomes meaningful to your life. For him, it was calligraphy. He took calligraphy courses, and then when the Apple came, he introduced calligraphy in computers. The similar thing happened to me, that I was a systems programmer. A lot of people were immigrating to America at that time. I immigrated too, and I started working in the computer field because that was an emerging field. It was more challenging. I did that. Then 1989 rolled around. I was the only son. Enormous family pressure to come back and be in India. So I did come back. But how my life connected with the dots, when I came back, Devina, in 1989-90, there was a huge cement boom going on in this country. And I was a freshman MBA from a good MBA school. And I California State, perfect. I could not name a cement company in America. You know, I just didn't know. And though as an MBA I used to read, as you said, voraciously, I couldn't name it because those unimportant businesses in America. No one paid attention to cement companies as they did in India. So 2-3 years I struggled to understand the market. And then, as luck would have it, or as you want to connect the dots, Infosys went public. And I was one of the first few people who understood the value of the software business and how important it was.
Because of your background.
Because of my background. I connected the dots. I was a systems programmer and I bought software stocks. At the time, Indian analysts were still looking at physical floor layouts, capacity, cement utilization numbers. I was one of the few people who understood the benefit of the software industry. So, you know, it was luck, as you say, that you were in the right place at the right time and you could ride the move. And
then what made you think of, you know, probably then you would think of joining another company, which you became like a member of the BSE yourself to do what you're saying?
Yeah, no, that was pretty straightforward. The BSE at that time, the government of India had a diktat that they wanted to increase the membership to make it more professional, so CAs and MBAs were encouraged. So the BSE offered 50 memberships, clearing memberships, for at that time a paltry sum of 6 lakh rupees. And I applied in that and became a member, and at that time the brokerage was a great business. I used to liken it to owning a popcorn stand in a movie. You know, you couldn't help but make money. It changed, of course, with digitization and with NSE coming on, it changed dramatically. But 89 to say 94, 95 were glory years for brokers. You know, the brokerage was 1%, not the 1/10 of 1% it is now. And volume was whatever you could do. I mean, so it was a good business to be in. But pretty soon I realized that I'd rather make the 100% that investors were making, because India is a great growth story. When I came, for example, the index was 600. Today it's closer to 17,000. So you have a 30-fold move in the index itself. So it is much better to focus on that part rather than the brokerage part. But it was an evolution of an investor. I moved from being a systems programmer to someone who was just being a broker to someone who tried to understand what value was.
And that's what you preach as well, like growth, good growth stories.
Good growth, good value. I mean, the trick for all of us is to buy things cheap. I mean, there's no substitute for that. My hero Warren Buffett and so many other people ahead of me and in India.
Yeah.
The trick in the stock market is always to buy things cheap, good quality companies at a cheap rate, and be very patient about them, because you're not buying a stock, you're buying a business. And a business takes time to mature and flavor and prosper.
Alright, so you like reading, so we know that these are some of the books that you like. You've read this, and probably everybody has read this, and clearly you can understand and connect the dots here as well to what one normally does.
Absolutely. See, as you grow up in the market, you realize that it's a canvas that offers you fabulous opportunities. You can do pretty much anything you want financially. And the reason we all get into the financial market is because we are interested in being financially free. And financial markets do offer that opportunity. And all these people through their lives, whether it's John Paulson's book, as you pointed out, made $20 billion through cracking the US mortgage market, or Warren Buffett when he bought Coke and American Express, all right? They all told us that the great companies waiting for us to pick up. You build a meaningful stake, and over time, if you're right, these companies will reward you back handsomely. So that has always been the dream, Devina. Opportunities are always there in the market, and there's one thing that people don't understand. The worse the market, the better the opportunities.
Exactly.
Because you want to buy stocks cheap.
I mean, you're always looking for bargains.
Absolutely, and that's what, think of it like shopping,
Yeah.
You get bargains, you're always happy.
Prices,
In stock market, you get bargains, we should be very happy.
You obviously initially were starting off with IT stocks, but then you started liking entertainment stocks as well, and particularly liquor stocks that you said would do really well, and then probably looking at the shape of it now. I mean, shift up.
We moved on. Buffett always taught us something like what they call a circle of competence. Find some things that you understand and bet on that. So a doctor should, for example, bet on pharmaceutical stocks. So given the fact that I was in the software business, I was looking at software stocks. From Infosys, we moved to a company called CMC, which had done the BSC trading system, which had done the Indian railway systems, and the stock at that time just got listed for a market cap of 30 crores. Now, because again, my software background told me that even the piece of software they wrote for the BSC was worth 100 crores. It was such a complicated software connecting so many cities together, instant trading, huge integrity of data issues, and you were getting this whole company for 30 crores. And of course, we bought the stock, and the stock went up almost 50x in the next year or so.
That's also a key point, to understand what you're investing in.
Absolutely, it's critical, because otherwise, if you ask for a tip from someone, you'll be fed for a couple of days, as the old saying goes. But if you understand that you're buying a business and understand the larger trajectory or the vision of the business, I think you'll be much more prosperous. The trick is that, just think, if you buy a stock, in India it's so great, dividends are tax-free in India, capital gains are tax-free in India. So you could have hold those stocks, become a multi-millionaire, if you will, and still not have to pay any taxes. So it's a great way to accumulate wealth in stocks. So finding a great stock is half the job. The other half is, of course, to hang on to it patiently till the company matures. Stock market is for long-term investing. People tend to think it is quick money because every few seconds a price comes refreshed to you of what your investment is worth. So people tend to measure it in 1 minute snatches or 1 day snatches. But the key to long-term wealth is to compound the wealth.
We'll come back to your investment philosophy, but just to focus a little bit more on your, what you like doing out of office. Aside of reading, we know that, you've done a lot of things. You've run the 21-kilometer marathon. You've almost climbed to the summit of peak of Mount Kilimanjaro, and Sahara Desert, trekked at Sahara Desert.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Well, like most people, when I turned 50, I drew a blank. You wanted something more out of your life.
Some achievement.
Yeah, you want to get out of your comfort zone. You were good in the stock market, you made your friends, but you hung around with the same set of people every single day. You want to get out of your comfort zone. So I tried to do something different every year. I went and trekked the Sahara because it always seemed like a great thing to do.
How was that?
It was fabulous. And you're, with a group of 10 people and 360 degrees of blue sky and sand. So it was a good experience. It was the first time I'd done something like this. It took a lot of preparation to get me ready. Then when I was on the Sahara trek, someone told me that I should go climb Kilimanjaro, which is the highest mountain in Africa. We fell a few hundred feet short of making the summit. But it's exhilarating. It's exhilarating that you can get out of your comfort zone. I and my friend, we both went and did it together.
You need have to be really prepped up in terms of...
Yeah, it's doable. It's not as doable. Of course, I try to do it at the wrong age when I'm 50 plus. You should probably do it when you're 35 plus. Last year I went and learned how to bake in Paris. I went to Cordon
Yeah,
Bleu.
you wanted to learn how to make bread.
Yeah, I'm the ultimate bread freak. So I went and learned how to bake bread out there. So try to do something new, stay out of my comfort zone. I think, as I mentioned to you earlier, financial freedom gives you that possibility. Instead of having to work 12 months a year for a living, if your stocks work for you, you can go out and do things that make more meaning to your life. So,
but you know, everybody probably doesn't have the luxury of the same, but with good guidance, you can probably achieve a little bit more.
Good guidance and thought process. I mean, someone has to think that, yes, I want to be financially free when I'm 50 years old, all right? And this is what's going to get me there. Unfortunately, most people are so involved in the immediate that they forget the long term. And, you know, that's something whenever I go to kids and try and speak to them in colleges, or I try to emphasize the importance of deciding what you want to do in life. Do you want to be financially free at 50, or do you want to have a great time right now? You can, and it's a matter of your choosing. But if you want to be financially free, the decisions that we've made today, they can't be made at 47.
No, they have to be made now.
Absolutely.
And so we've gotten to know a little bit more about Ramesh Damani, climbing Kilimanjaro, trekking on Sahara. Who would have known that? Anyways, there's still lots more to know about him and his investment philosophies in particular. We'll take that very short break, coming right back. Welcome back. You're watching Out of Office right here on Profit. We're back in conversation with Ramesh Damani. Ramesh, let's start off with your investment philosophy. We just got a glimpse of that earlier on when you said you want to be an investor. It's not about trading days, but it's about staying on with a good story.
Yes. The trick, as I told you earlier, is that you want to invest in a business, and a business takes time to mature, and it takes some understanding to practice that philosophy. You want to be safe. For example, you think India is a great consumption story.
Yeah.
You want to be a part of some of the great consumption stocks, not for the next 12 months or the 24 months, but India is an economy with 1.2 billion people, per capita going to $2,000 to $4,000. There could be a huge consumption boom in this country, just like we saw, for example, telephones. They went from 1 per 100 to 65 per 100. Okay, huge opportunity in telecoms. So that opportunity might come in consumer durables, it might come in FMCG, it might come in entertainment. So you want to be a part of those businesses, not for 1 year, 2 years, but for the period of next 5 years, 10 years, because it's an intellectual hypothesis. The hypothesis is that India is going to have 50% of its population in the middle class.
Yeah.
From 120 crores, 60 crores will be in the middle class. So that has profound implications for investing. So we try to approach the markets from those kind of views. India is a great place to build, stakes in strategically important businesses that you want to hold for the next 5-10 years, and think about the kind of dividends or the kind of capital appreciation you get from that. So the Indian consumption story perhaps is a good place to start looking at now. But there will be booms and busts. Yeah. There will be booms and busts periodically over there. But as I told you earlier, keep your eyes on the prize. Look at is 60 crore middle class going to happen? Are we going to join the nation of prosperous nations? Are we going to become a Singapore, a Taiwan, a Japan? As I think Nita Ambani famously said, that India used to be called a third world country, but increasingly we are thought of as the world's third largest economy. And that has profound implications for investing. So, you have to come
from a global standpoint, I mean, this is going to be the market for them as well. We have to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as we've seen study after study, as the per capita GDP purchasing power goes from $1,000, $1,500 to $3,000, what it unleashes in almost every single country is a huge consumption boom. So I think the market, these stocks seem expensive right now, but they could get ridiculously expensive as people understand the full implications of this demographic dividend that's happening in India.
Say, I'm just hypothetically talking about you when you started off, and say there's someone probably, who's looking to follow those footsteps. how does one take it forward now?
The one thing when I go and lecture at students at some university, they ask me, Ramesh, you were so lucky, all right? You had these great opportunities. The tech sector rose in India. Consumption story unfolded during this time. Maybe we don't have those kind of opportunities. And I tell them that opportunities are going to be more, not less, over the next 25 years. Think about it the other way. In an advanced country like America, 10 years ago, no one had heard of Google, no one had heard of Facebook, no one had heard of Zinnia. All these companies created 50, 80, $100 billion market caps, starting from zero. As you know, Instagram was recently sold for $1 billion to Facebook. So opportunities in a capitalistic society, and especially a society with so many disruptive technologies coming in, will abound. So people thinking that there are no opportunities are not doing their homework. I think the temptation to make easy money, the temptation to trade on a tip is so strong, and people like me also succumb to it once in a while. But the key to long-term wealth is to formulate some sort of intellectual hypothesis and stick to it until disproved.
All right. So right now, everyone's in a position where probably waiting is what they want to do. But would you wait? No,
it's a good time as any to invest in India. I think
because if you're betting really long term, then 100, 200 points here or there, how does it make?
It doesn't really matter, and that's really the point you need to understand, that you're not betting for the next year or 2 years, in which case stock market returns are notoriously volatile. You're betting for the next 10, 15 years, particularly if you're young. See, there's a big lunatic theory going around in the stock market that people are putting money into fixed deposits because you're getting 10% assured returns out there. And hey, the stock market's down 10% last year, so I'm much better off
in fixed income.
The problem with 10% in fixed income is that inflation is running at 10% and your currency is depreciating at about 8-10% a year. So in effect, you're running on a treadmill going backwards, which means you're going nowhere. Because inflation and the currency depreciation is eating into all your gains. The stock market, as I told you, returns are not linear. When they come, they'll come in spurts of 30%, 40% a year, and that's where you'll make up. The proviso is you must invest in good quality companies.
So, like you did with CMC and like you did with Infosys, is there that golden goose right now that you can find in the market?
Absolutely, and I say this with all the conviction in my power. I mean, the opportunities for young people in India abound, right? It will only be visible in hindsight. Oh my God, maybe this sector was available so cheap, why didn't I think about it? There's no reason to believe that some smart Indian techie won't come up with a software that will change the world. India is a software capital. They've just not been exposed to those kind of ideas. There's nothing that we not recreate another Bharti, for example, in some other industry. All right? There are opportunities that are multiplying, and it is, and they will always multiply. And anytime the market falls, the Chinese have a great way. They have only one character to symbolize crisis and opportunity. So in the stock market, it's a great thing to think about. That every time there's a crisis, it's an opportunity also to buy great companies at a knockdown price.
Over the next 1 year time, you never know what can happen in the global markets, whether or not they solve the Eurozone problem, whether our own macro internals improve or no. But what are you working with in terms of assumptions going forward?
See, Peter Lynch, one of the heroes that we talked about, once famously said that if you gave him, 15 minutes to think about a macro problem, he'd waste 14 minutes, because there are so many variables that nobody can address these problems. What is going to happen to oil prices? What is going to happen to the Eurozone? What is going to happen with, Syria? I think nobody has the answers to all these questions. The trick in this business is to focus on great companies, to do it one company at a time. All right? Do I like this business? Can this business grow at a return of 15% or so per year? Is there a technology threat to this business that can wipe out this business? So ask yourself some basic questions and then just take it from there. So my advice to all your listeners is don't worry too much, don't sweat too much about the big picture stuff, right? Occasionally the markets give you a huge clue in big picture investing when they're so overbought or so oversold that the next drift has to be the opposite side. But most of the time you're better off invested in stocks. And if you feel you're not competent to buy stocks, say you feel that I just cannot compete with the Wall Street guys, I think you can, but let's say you cannot bring yourself, buy a tracking fund, buy an index fund. That will just replicate the market over periods of time. But the idea that you're safe, by putting it into a fixed deposit is a fairly lunatic idea for young people.
Have you made any mistakes?
Oh God, so many, you know. It's a lot. This is a mistake. This is a business that will humble you time and again, all right?
Yeah.
So I had some real duds in my portfolio that you scratched. What the hell was I thinking when I bought that stock? It happens all the time. But the trick is the winners should outpace the losers, okay? You should make up for the losses you've had. So if you bought Infosys, for example, and that stock went up 500x, and you lost all your money in another stock, you're still way ahead of the game,
Yeah.
all right? So the trick is to keep focusing on buying those great companies. Warren Buffett gave this piece of advice, and I'll repeat that for your audience, you know. A class of graduating MBA students asked him, said, if there's one piece of advice you could give us, what would you give us to become better investors? And he said, look, if there's only one advice I could give you, I'd give you a punch card with 20 circles in them, and every time you bought a stock, one hole would be used. So in your life, you could only buy 20 stocks.
Oh, so you really have to...
So you really, precisely, you really think about it and you buy the great companies. And as I reflect back on my life, if I had followed the discipline, very, very hard to do, okay? But if you follow that advice, if you bought 20 stocks only, okay?
In your lifetime?
Yes, in your lifetime, you'll find the companies that truly meet the test. And you'll probably be better off. But, you know, we sit before a screen, we are all given to human frailties, quick money. Yeah. But again, it's a standard to live up to.
And you see those price moves, like you just spike up and you feel like, I want to be a part of that big move.
Precisely, the rush, the adrenaline rush, you know.
Alright, so I'm going to quickly ask you a few questions just to get to know you a little bit more and your preferences. And whatever comes first to your mind, you can let me know. Regrets from leaving being a systems programmer to moving into stock market?
No, regret is I didn't dream big enough. That is a lesson I didn't learn early in my life. The market is a canvas, you can paint whatever you want with it. So might as well dream big, right? I didn't understand that till very late in my life. So.
Between trekking, between climbing a mountain and between running the marathon, which gave you the biggest kick?
I think trekking through the Sahara Desert is something I always wanted to do. Kili is physically tough to do. I would say I enjoy trekking.
The best book that you've read so far? I mean, one of the books that has been inspirational to you?
I think almost anything about Buffett because it kind of opened my eyes. I would say particularly to one is called A Permanent Value by Andrew Kilpatrick. It's about Buffett. There's a chapter there called Black Friday when all the brand name stocks fell and Buffett's response to that. I don't think anyone should be an analyst without reading that chapter. It is 3 pages, but it's pure wisdom. Jim Rogers is a great favorite of mine. He wrote a book called Investment Biker.
I know this is a rhetorical question, but trading or investment?
Investment. Clearly, investing is the way to create long-term wealth. Trading is a way to have fun, enjoy yourself. It's like going to the races. It's an adrenaline rush.
Between reading, doing all the things that you did, and focusing on the market.
To me, it's reading. It's just, it's such an overwhelming, I mean, I have to spend a few hours a day reading. I mean, that if I don't do that, I feel disconnected. So, if you ask me the best invention of mankind, I'd say reading glasses. You know, if you didn't have that, what would you do?
Ramesh Damani, we know much more now about you. Thanks so very much for joining us.
Thank you, Divya. It's been a pleasure.